G'day, Ninth and O Baptist Church. My name is Drew Smith, and these are Devotionables, brief devotions for very, very busy people. And today, we are trepidatiously going where no devotional has gone before, talking about a man that's not wearing all his clothes. Now, with a statement like that, you would probably expect that I'm about to jump into a passage and give you a lot of context so what's happening makes sense, and that's usually the best way to go about a Bible study. But today, because we're doing things differently, we're going to jump into a passage with no context at all. Read with me in Mark 14, starting in verse 43, unless you're listening to this while driving, in which case, don't read, just listen. While he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, suddenly arrived. With him was a mob with swords and clubs from the chief priests, the scribes, and the elders. His betrayer had given them a signal. "The one I kiss," he said, "he's the one. Arrest him and take him away under guard." So when he came, immediately he went up to Jesus and said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. They took hold of him and arrested him. And one of those who stood by drew his sword, struck the high priest's servant, and cut off his ear. Jesus said to them, "Have you come out with swords and clubs as if I were a criminal to capture me? Every day I was among you teaching in the temple, and you didn't arrest me, but the scripture must be fulfilled." Then they all deserted him and ran away. Now a certain young man, wearing nothing but a linen cloth, was following them. They caught hold of him, but he left the linen clothes behind and ran away naked. Now we read this passage, which is a passage describing the betrayal of Jesus. And you get to that section there at the end about this mysterious young man, and a couple of questions immediately come to mind. First of all, who is this guy? Second, why are you in a garden wearing only a loincloth? And then third, why did you run away naked? These are all good questions, and scholars have a variety of opinions about them because it's honestly a little difficult to tell why Mark thought this was necessary to insert at this point in the narrative, especially since Mark is the only one of all the gospel writers to include this detail. So let's start off with, who is this young man? Truth of the matter is, we aren't entirely sure, but a lot of people think this is likely Mark describing himself in the narrative. Second, why is he in a garden wearing only a linen cloth? And here, I think the most likely answer is it's very possible, some scholars think, that this young man was following the disciples at night after he had gotten up from bed. So perhaps he hears about Jesus walking by, or he sees them and knows who Jesus is, gets up out of bed, and then there's kind of trailing behind them, wearing nothing but what he would have worn to sleep in. And then we get to the question of, why is it that Mark would include this little tidbit at this point in the story? And I think the reason is Mark wants to emphasize just how thoroughly Jesus was deserted. Not only was Jesus deserted by all his closest disciples, but Jesus was even shamelessly deserted by a young man just trailing along who was so scared at that moment, so unwilling to stand next to Jesus, that he would rather run away in his shame and without any dignity at all, naked through a garden right back to his home. You know, brothers and sisters, there is an insidious lie the devil often tells us, which is that if we fail Jesus, if we fail to stand by him, if we fail to obey him, if we fail to love him with our all, then Jesus will not love us. Jesus will not care for us. Jesus will not stand by us. And what I want us to see here is that Mark includes this story of a young man who was naked and afraid, so much so that he shamelessly betrayed Jesus. And yet, what does Jesus do in the very next verse? He marches towards the cross all the same. Jesus did not come to love and save the virtuous, the godly, and the perfect. He came to love and save betrayers, the faithless, and the weak. We are, brothers and sisters, at some moment in our lives, betrayers of our King. But never, never does that loosen his grip of love on us. Be encouraged by that, brothers and sisters. Have a great day.